good, you guys? Josh out here in Singapore, and as always, thank you so much for joining me on the Night Out podcast. You guys, I really love this kick I'm on all of a sudden. I've been digging back into James Clear and a lot of his emails. And you know what? This 3-2-1 concept, 3 quotes from him, 2 big ideas, and a question from me. Like, I really love it because it's got me thinking on a lot of different levels. So lately, I've been going back through all of his old emails. Like, yeah, I'm one of those hoarders. I keep things from people. It's why I have thousands upon thousands of emails in my inbox. But today's quote that I decided to talk about was this quote where he says, "What looks like a talent gap is often a focus gap." He goes on to explain that the all-star is often an average to above average performer who spends more time working on what's important and less time on distractions. Which means when he refers to the focus gap, what he's saying is the talent is actually staying focused. I really like that. That is something that I had to read a couple of times over to really make sure I got the gist of what was going on. And I realized that, yeah, that is actually true. So yes, average to above average performers who have a little bit of a skill, right? And what they do is instead of doing the bare minimum, they go all out. They double down on their strengths, like Gary Vee talks about, right? They do the things that they love best, that they do best, and they focus on that. So when I think back on my dance career, I was not a very strong dancer in the beginning, but once I hit my stride and I realized, yes, I do have the form, I do have the stamina now, I've built up my stamina. Now I focus on just practicing. I focus on hitting my mark. I focus on making sure I get all the steps done in the time allotted, the squeezing complex dance combinations into a specific amount of time. So I focused on all that I was strong in. I focused on just the work at hand. I did not get sidetracked. I didn't fall in love with boys, although I wanted to. I didn't go off on a tangent. I didn't complain about all the problems. I took what I knew and I just did and did and did and did until I could no longer get it wrong. And I think that's been the difference between where I was when I first started my dance career to where I was when I ended my dance career. It's not over yet, you guys. I haven't retired technically yet, but back when I was at my peak, I would say, I was really going all out on dance and I was focused on all that I could do. I did not focus on the mistakes that I was being yelled at for. I did not focus on why this person doesn't like me and why this teacher is so hard on me and why the dance is so difficult. I didn't focus on the things that were going wrong. I didn't focus on the problems. I focused on what I knew and where I could improve the best. Where I needed to get help, I got help. I remember, let's see, another example. Working in hospitality, y'all. When I first started working in hospitality, it was Kingsmill Resort back in Williamsburg, and from there I moved to Wyndham Worldwide, which was originally Fairfield Resorts, and that was timeshares. So in that span of time, I learned that I had a knack for speaking to people and calming people down and getting people to listen. So I fell into marketing, and I got really good at community marketing. It wasn't something I wanted to do at first, and once I kind of wet my feet a little bit and started speaking to the community and businesses in the area, trying to coordinate with, people who would be staying on property who might be able to get a discount of some sort by going local and shopping. It became easier and easier to sell the idea. So once again, what I did was I focused on what I was good at. I know that I can speak to people. I know that I can get to make friends with pretty much anybody, right? And once I got to make friends with them, what I realized was my sales strength, which I didn't go out and do sales at all, but the quality that I had that had to do with sales was the fact that I was able to listen really well to what it was that my potential customer or client needed and then deliver exactly what the solution was that they needed. And so I doubled down on that. I continued and continued. I had a really great community marketing program. I had a really strong portfolio of businesses in the area that would happily give us a 10 to 20% discount on their goods and services if our owners who came to visit or stay on property were to shop local. So that was something I doubled down on, and I was able to become a standout marketer in that regard. I got to a point where I was running 4 different departments, which meant I was handling all the dinner parties, which were home and away. So they were ones that they traveled to a different state to go and sit down and speak to the owners there, or they would come over to our one of the 3 properties. It was either Governor's Green, Kingsgate or Patriots Place. It was really nice, all three of them. And when I wasn't doing dinner parties, the traveling ones, I did special event weekends, which means people would come down for NASCAR races, or we'd do murder mystery weekends. And I got really good at event planning as well because I hit my stride there too. The thing is, I've realized about my own career that if you give me a project, chances are I'm not going to like it very much, but at some point I'm going to have to find something that I do like in order for me to stay focused, in order for me to stay interested in the project itself. And once I find one thing I like, I start winning. I start getting small things that actually work really well, and I keep on going. I just keep doubling down on it. It's been that way, if I look at it now. It's been that way for most of my life. When I got into hospitality here in Singapore, which hospitality here in Singapore is different from that of the States, I realized that they have a different way of doing things. It's still kind of old-fashioned. They still expect you to, cater to the guest. The guest is always right. Whereas I come from a background where I believe firmly that if I take care of my employees will be more than happy to take care of the guests because they know we got your back. You know what I'm saying? So when I got here, it was a little bit tougher. I had to break myself in to their way of thinking. And even then, I kicked back on a couple of things I would not change. I didn't want to change the way that I did my makeup. I didn't want to look like I was overly made up. I didn't want to wear a bright lipstick or anything. So I made do. And eventually I ended up cutting all my hair off because I was just pushing back with the management. But what I did realize was I became really good at the work that I was doing. I made every mistake possible in the first 6 months, and I screwed up a lot of things, and I got in trouble a lot. And eventually what ended up happening was I found a way to fix every one of those mistakes, which meant that I was now a pro at making mistakes and rectifying them. And so I became the best person to train all of our newbies because I knew how to explain to them so that they wouldn't be afraid of making mistakes. I knew how to explain to them how to correct something if something went wrong because I'd already done all those things, you know what I'm saying? So that was what I found that I loved about that particular job. And so once I loved something about it, everything kind of fell into place. So I think that James Clear is very, very right about the fact that what looks like a talent gap is often a focus gap. And yeah, I'm not a genius by any means. I'm average, if that. And I know that when I start focusing on what I can do versus what I can't do, things often get a little bit easier on all fronts. If I start focusing on, and I went through that phase too, when I focused on all the problems, like this person doesn't like me, that person's giving me a hard time, this person has it out for me, I always get written up by that person, they're all waiting for me to fail. I saw problems everywhere. But once I started realizing that, you know what, it's in my attitude and I need to focus on the things that I do well, I started focusing on how I spoke to the guests. And I became one of those people who really set the bar for small, meaningful gestures when it came to guests and knowing what the guests wanted and their preferences, writing them down, making sure that the next set of employees had enough information to be able to really take care of the guest, like they knew who they were already. And so the guest doesn't feel like it's, a change of hands every time somebody comes to take care of them or somebody sets up the room for them. It's very, very easy that way. So I took what I knew. I found something to like about the work that I was doing, even though it wasn't the best work, even though it wasn't easy work, and I worked really hard. It was shift work, which is even worse. But once I found something I liked about it, the rest kind of got easier to manage. Once I found something I loved about it, it was easy to find something else I loved about it, something else that I was winning at. And suddenly, I was hitting my stride once again. I was doing the best possible work again and being appreciated for it. Not necessarily from all the places that I want to be appreciated, but I was getting appreciated. I was getting feedback. I was getting people who were willing to work with me or willing to negotiate with me. If I needed another department to help me out with something last minute, they were willing to work with me because they knew I would do the same for them. So it's one of those things where when you realize what you're really good at and you focus on what you're really good at, you start to see opportunities to improve other places because your attitude is right, because you're willing to accept feedback and not look at it as criticism and judgment instead. So I don't know where that thing changes, but it damn sure changes. And I feel good about that. I've realized that about myself. And I don't know if it was something I knew before this quote or not, but I appreciate the quote itself. I appreciate the work that that James Clear does. So stay tuned. I know there's going to be plenty more because I'm telling you, his newsletter is worth it. There's a lot of really cool ideas in there and stuff that I definitely want to pick apart and explain or discuss. And I would love you guys' feedback. Let me know what you think. In the meantime, think about picking up Atomic Habits by James Clear. Really good stuff. All right, you guys, I love you. Bye.